All right, and I think Nick, if you can mute yourself. Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna start recording right now. I need host permission to record. Nick,
I started it. It's recording.
oh, you did start. Okay, it is
Yeah.
recording. Okay, so I'll have to get the video from you. All right, so everybody, welcome to week 3 of Summer of Shipping. Here, let me minimize this. And I don't know exactly if my recording and is going to look the same, is because it's going to be on Nick's computer, but we'll go from there. So I am going to oopsies, maximize this. So this is an exciting week. A lot of students are finishing up finals this week, or they finished up maybe a week or two ago, and now the final crop of May of exams are kind of wrapping up. And so this is exciting. A lot of people are freeing up, and that's really great for our ability to ship. So that's exciting. It's day 21, week 3. And for those of you who are just new, this is our website. You can check us out. If you're watching on YouTube, you can go to this website and join us. And for mentors who want to join, you can also join from that website too. So these are now going to be our official emojis for this program. And so whenever I use that, the sun means summer, and the ship, that's going to be our shipping kind of logo in terms of emojis. So quick refresh of last week. We did some housekeeping. We talked about some growth initiatives and some hackathon type things. And the meat of the presentation was on Git. So we did some basic things with Git, as well as some not so basic, and just kind of give you a mental model for how to think about it. Talked about some ideas with study groups. Finally, we broke out into demo. Well, didn't break out into demos, but we did demos and broke out into breakout sessions. So this week, and now I'm just gonna start adding more little emojis to these things to give some more color. But this week we've got a lot of announcements, and so I'll talk about these in turn once we get there. But the big topic of today is going to be on scope and project management. And so these are effective tactics for when you're starting a project. How can you make sure that you keep it on track, and throughout the life cycle of the project, how do you make sure that you're doing the right rituals to have the habits of success? Finally, we'll do our regular demos and breakout sessions. So that's what we're going to do next. All right, so objectives. I'm going to do this every week. It's really important to have clarity on what your goals are. And so I'm going to talk about our clarity of goals for SOS. For SOS, we really are aiming at 2 things. One is to improve your resume. And that's going to be improving your traditional resume by adding a project or 2 onto that thing, as well as improving your public resume. So are you being useful and interesting on the internet via Twitter or your blog or whatever? Just something where you can be like, hey, this is me trying to add value, and so on. The other thing that we're going to try to do is we're going to improve the skills that you need on the job. One of the big things that I've talked about a lot is code quality. I have previously thought that code quality was going to be done via, something where I had to scale up my, I had to do write-ups of specific code reviews. But over the last week or so, I've been just, amazed by the types of mentors who have joined the program, and how they are both people who are extremely skilled technically and really care. And so many of them is overwhelming. And so I'm really excited to see that. So we'll find more hands-on ways to get code quality. Communication really matters, and a long tail of other topics. So this week's long tail of other topics is scope and project management. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Before we do that, we're going to dive into our announcements. Again, there's quite a few of them, so bear with me. The first, so there's the beginner track that we're going to announce today. So this is for people who haven't built a web app before, but still want to do SOS. The second one is group formation program. It's hard to form groups for people that you just randomly meet on the internet, and we are going to try to have methods to shepherd that. The third thing is this project that I'm working on, which is called the SOS Showcase. Essentially, just taking our website and turning it into a showcase. And I'll talk more about that. Another thing is an open mic for project pitches. I don't necessarily expect there to be any project pitches today because I didn't talk about that previously, but if anybody does want to pitch their project, get mentally prepared right now, and then ping me in the Zoom chat, and we'll just give you a chance to unmute yourself and just do a little pitch. And then finally, we're going to talk about a potential thing we'll do with mentors. Again, it's all about mentorship this summer and how do we get more contact with mentors and students. And that's a huge, huge goal of ours. And so that's going to be what number 5 is. Number 6 is a LinkedIn group. So we'll talk about that too. So first thing is the beginner track. The problem that we're trying to solve with the beginner track is that beginners have a lot of learning to do before they can start their projects. If you've never built a web app before and you're like, oh, okay, well, it would be really great to build a Twitter clone, but I don't even know what an HTTP request really does. That's going to be something that we can help you fill those knowledge gaps. And so what we've done is we've created a mini curriculum for beginners. It's not quite a tutorial, but more of a roadmap to get you to proficiency. It lives here. So if you go to that URL, you'll be able to find that document. We think it'll take about a 1 or 2 week crash course of self-study. But it's not just self-study. Don't do it alone. We have a channel now in the Discord called Beginner Track, and it's just for people who are on this journey together. We actually have somebody, Gary, and I don't know if Gary's on the call, but if he is, if you can ping everybody to like, hey, I'm here. He will be your Sherpa, and reach out to him and ask questions and also ask each other. So if you're an upperclassman and you already know this stuff, so please drop in and help out too. That'll really help. So, right. So I left a little thing. Hey, Gary's here. Yep. So I left a little thing to go to the channel to show you guys where it is. Oh, whoopsies. And I'm going to do that. So in the Discord, if you go down to collaboration, learning here, beginner track, this is where it is. And so this is where the conversation happens. You see a little link in the channel description. That's where you can find the information, and other people will just be posting useful things for beginners out here. And so we've got one of our mentors who's dropped some useful learning tips that they use when they were learning. And so I learned a lot of my stuff by a Rails tutorial. And so I might drop that in here as well. So that kind of stuff is going to be in this channel. And it's just going to be your little community while you get through the beginner's track. So that's that. The next thing is group formation. So the problem we're trying to solve here is it's hard to form groups, especially with people that you just meet on the internet. And it's hard to reach out to mentors because you don't know them and maybe they'll bite. I guarantee you they don't, but it's hard to say, right? You don't know them yet. So our solution is really 2 solutions. One is we have started a matching program, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. The second thing is to encourage idea pitches. So if people pitch their ideas, I know that you guys have ideas. I've been asking people to send me emails for the project list that they want to work on. I know people have lots of ideas. I know a lot of these ideas are almost too ambitious to be done alone. And so like, please utilize the idea pitch avenues that we're going to have for you. And via these two avenues of group formation, one is where we match you. The other one is somebody pitches, and then people who are like-minded go find that person and form a group. Once you have a group, now go find a mentor, and we will help you do that. So the way we're going to do that, one, go to the Find a Group channel, fill out a form. That's where the matching process will happen. And Martini, who is one of just our participants, he is going to help out with that process and really just make sure that everybody's questions are answered and you kind of know how to find a group. The second thing is, if you have an idea and you want to pitch, go to the idea pitch channel and say, this is what I'm thinking about doing, blah, blah, blah. And if you are interested in that idea, converse with that person or DM them and just form that group, or just have that conversation. And once you have that group, now go to find a mentor and maybe reach out to a mentor, or we'll do our best to match you. And that's going to be something that's kind of behind the scenes, but we're going to really try to see like, hey, mentors, here are the groups that we have available, or do you have any, is this sound exciting to you, so on and so forth. We've got a question, should you finish the beginner track before finding a group? You don't have to if you're confident in your abilities. If you haven't built a web app before, it's recommended because then you will be able to contribute a lot better. So it's not necessary if you have experience, but if you don't have experience, it's strongly recommended, almost required. It required in the sense that if you don't, then you're going to struggle, and it's going to not be a great experience for everybody if they expect you to be having done some sort of web development before. So I hope that clarifies. Got it. Thanks. Awesome. All right, and so here, oh, another message just coming through. Is mentorship available for those completing solo projects? Yes, yes, but we're going to try to prioritize mentorship for people working in groups. But mentorship is going to be loosely available through chat and channels, and you can always DM or book office hours with mentors. And so we'll talk about that just right now. So here are the resources for all of these. One, here's the matching form. If you go to find a group channel, you'll see that there. There's the weekly pitch, which is going to be part of this presentation. And if you have an idea of the pitch, just hop on, say, hey, my name is whatever. I am trying to solve this problem. My idea is to build this, and I'm looking for collaborators. So just do that pitch. And then finally, here's our mentor list. And so this is our roster of mentors who are available. They have their Discords there. They have a way to get in contact with them. Some mentors have Calendly like me, so you can book times with them, or you can just DM them to set up time because their schedules are really crazy. And sometimes you can set up a 5-minute chat or something and get a couple questions knocked out or something along those lines. But so definitely reach out to mentors. They definitely want to talk to you, but at the same time, don't overwhelm them. If you're just one person asking 50 mentors, and you're monopolizing it, don't do that. That's not cool. I'll know about that, and we'll have a conversation. But for the most part, do use this as a way to have healthy conversations with mentors, people who are really, really going to be able to help you out. Oh, oops. All right, so I was going to pause the video to go to find a group, but I think you just look for the find a group channel, you'll find the information. The idea pitch channel, I do have one little thing I want to mention. With idea pitch, if you go to idea pitch, once you pitch something, everyone now has the ability in this channel to pin messages. So if you pitch something, then pin it. And here are all of the ones that I've gone ahead and pinned. Right now, so far, I've seen 3 ideas that have been pitched, but I'm sure there will be more. And so as soon as you pitch an idea, pin it. And so that way people can find it. And if I resume the presentation, yep, pitch it, pin it. That's what idea pitch is all about. Pitch it, pin it. At least for now. If that doesn't work over time, we will figure something out. But so we'll start with this. All right, next thing, the SOS Showcase. That's our website right now. The problem that we're looking to solve here is we need to find a way to keep track of all the projects that people are working on and shipping. And the solution is essentially evolve our website to be your portfolio/showcase. It also doubles as a project tracker to keep tabs on people and find repos and see what other people are working on. Or if later down the line, if you're actually looking for contributors, at first you didn't want contributors because you wanted to get the repo in order. And now you can take on people to help build out extra features, which is a really good model. Then you can advertise via that website. And so that's what we're looking to build. But this project needs members. I don't have enough time to both do all of the things I want to do with SOS as well as build this project by myself. And what better way than, in my opinion, to turn this into a project for SOS, kind of a meta project. At this point, I'm going to do open mics. And so if anybody has something that they want to pitch, now would be the time. Okay, I'm going to quick look at the chat. One person asks, on average, how large are the groups going to be? That's going to probably depend, but we're probably going to aim for about 4 people, around 4, and maybe more. But it's going to be varied by how many people sign up. For example, if there's 5 people who are interested in some sort of pretty esoteric programming, then we're probably going to have that group of 5 stick together. But if so it'll be pretty variable, around 4 maybe. So we'll see exactly, but that's just kind of the ballpark. And I think that's good. Okay. All right. Actually, I was just kidding. It's not open mic because I get to go first. And I'm actually going to just pitch my own project right now. So as an example of what these might look like. So the pitch is that SOS is very large and quite decentralized. In many ways, this is a strength because you get to work on what you want to work on. You will work on things with who you want to work on, unless you are asking to be matched. But it's also, oops, I have a typo there. Also a weakness in that we can't really see who's working on what. It's always a visibility issue. Something. these large and decentralized organizations, a little bit like my previous employer, they have this problem where you have a lot of things that are going on. At the same time, it's hard to see what's happening. So we want to leverage the technology that we have available to us to make a browsable, searchable showcase of finished progress and those that are still in progress. So people can hop on board. The benefits of working on this: one, you get to work with me. I'll likely be doing the initial CRs and project planning and a lot of that coordination. And so that's a benefit. Another benefit is this is a real problem that needs solving. If we can solve this, this will help SOS grow. It'll help SOS, get its goals of being a more public thing. And so, yeah, that's a real problem that needs solving. And then the progression will be really interesting. We're going to try to start with writing as little code as possible, and then progressing to something that might be a pretty kick-ass, progressive web app or something along those lines. So if you're interested, DM me on Discord or email, and we'll go from there. So that's an example of a project pitch. And if anybody else wants to pitch, I can turn over the mic, and I will sit in the chat for a second to see if anybody is describing that they want to pitch. I don't think we have any takers. No takers right now. Okay, that's all good. But this avenue will be here for anybody watching in the future and they want to pitch. Oh, we do have somebody on. Okay, we do have somebody who wants to pitch. So Van, do you want to pitch something? You can just say yes or no.
Hey, yeah, sure, why not?
All right. So we've got two people who might want to pitch. So Van and Farron. I'll take it away, Van, and then Farron, you got next. And we'll do. Sorry to keep the. I will. If you go over 1 minute, I will nudge you to come back.
Okay. Wow, that's really good. Okay, so basically, Andrew, we all know him. He put out the thing where you could use Twitch emotes on Facebook and stuff like that. So I was thinking, there's this thing called faceapp.js, and it's built upon TensorFlow.js, which you can use to capture media and then put filters onto it and stuff like that. So I was thinking, what if we took just what Facebook? What if we took what technically Facebook Story and Snapchat did, where you can put masks and filters onto your face, and then just brought it into PC, because I'm pretty sure, at least mainly, it's kind of only a mobile thing. And put it in a Chrome extension. Yeah.
Cool. All right, so it's a Chrome extension for, say that last part again.
Okay, so it's a Chrome extension, and if you notice what Snapchat and Instagram Story does is that you can put face filters and masks onto your face.
Gotcha.
So I was taking inspiration of what Andrew did, which what he did was he made it so that you could use Twitch emotes onto, I think, what's a Facebook Messenger? I don't remember. I haven't looked at it in a while. Nick is jumping guess. I'm gonna hope it's yes. I have no idea. Okay, yes, from Andrew. Thank God. Okay, so I'm basically just low-key kind of ripping that a little bit and just saying, hey, why don't we take the filters from Snapchat and Instagram Story, bring it to PC? Because from what I know, I don't really know if that's a thing.
Gotcha. Sweet. So it's taking Instagram filters and whatever from Snapchat and applying them via Chrome extension to other potentially apps and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so that's Van's idea. If you are excited about working on that, hey, Van, if you can make a post and idea pitch as well, so that we have a record of that, and we'll be able to go from there. All right, next up, we've got, I think, Farron, you wanted to do a pitch as well?
Yeah. So last week you saw a demo. I did a demo of, I called it Tinder for Tattoos. I'm looking for collaborators on that, specifically people who are experienced with front end, although I'm willing to take pretty much anybody as a collaborator. The idea would be, it would be React or React Native, something like that.
Awesome, cool. And Farron, if you can drop a message in the idea pitch as well, just talk a little bit more about your idea, and then just so we have a record of that. Awesome, perfect, great. Cool, so that's gonna be just an idea pitch. If other people, in the future, if you wanna prepare a slide, I can inject that slide into the presentation as well, so you have that to go off of, and we'll just kind of do that moving forward. All right, it's idea pitch. All right, next thing for announcements, we've got a lot of announcements this week. We've got our mentor Q&A session. Our mentors are awesome. They wanna interact with you, so do reach out and just say hi. Again, here's the link. We're going to try to facilitate a lot more student mentor interactions this summer. And one of the things that we're thinking about doing is a live Q&A. So, and then we've got one of our mentors online right now. So Sebastian says hi. And so everybody shower him with love. Okay. Another announcement is we've got a LinkedIn group that we just formed. So here's the link. Again, Martini stepped up and he made this, and we are. I think it's a really great thing, just because on LinkedIn, with such a large group, it's going to be hard to remember every single person that you interact with here. And if you just see that, hey, you both have one mutual group in common, you'll remember like, oh, we at least have that shared experience. And that's going to be one way to just make the connections that you make via SOS just a tiny bit stronger, even the loose ones. And just having that mutual experience, I think, will be beneficial. So check out that LinkedIn group. It's a little useful thing. Yeah, I'll post it on the Discord. Actually, hey, if Martini is online, can you post that on the Discord? Or somebody, can someone post that on the Discord? Because I might forget to do that. Perfect. Okay, so we are now on to this week's presentation topics, which are scope and project management. So let's get started. Start with scope. What is scope? Scope is really just, how much you are building. And one of the things that, like I would like to talk about is when you're on the job, it's not what you build, but what problems you solve that define the success. And so sometimes you can build a lot and have really, really big impact, but it's not necessarily perfectly correlated. On an internship, before you even walk in the door, your mentor has probably spent at least an hour, hopefully much more, trying to take your project and scope it down to something that's really manageable for you. And by the time you show up, there's been a ton of work already by your mentor, your team, your mentor's manager, and all of this to set you up for success. You just, ideally in a good internship program, you come in, execute a bunch of tasks, and you're done, right? So that for the team, that's a really good outcome because there's no risk of slippage. In SOS, anybody needs to define the scope. Probably is going to be you. And so because it's going to be you, we got to learn how to do it well. And so that's what hopefully the first part of this presentation will do. A huge part of my thoughts on scope are influenced by this one sheet of paper. And this comes from a guy, his name is DJ Patel. And I forget exactly what he was, but he worked in the White House as maybe the CTO or the chief data scientist or something. And this is a thing that the piece of just a note that he had that he looked at every morning. And I want to point out three things. So you see that right there. There's a ship daily. So he tells himself, remember to ship daily. And then there's two other points that I'm going to, you can't see on this slide. We're going to go to the next slide. But if you just take this Twitter thing and just save it somewhere, it's such a useful thing. So those little comments in the bottom that you can't really see say, what's required to cut the scope by 1/2? That's why that matters here. So he's constantly thinking to himself, how can I cut the scope by 1/2? What an amazing mentality. The second thing there was what needs to be done to double the impact. And what's crazy is, treating these as independent things is actually extremely useful because then you explore the design space. And a lot of the times, impact will scale with scope, but sometimes it doesn't. And so just being able to ask that question is really useful. And remember, ship daily. All right, here's another piece of advice, and it comes from Basecamp. It's from their book, Get Real, and they say, hey, build half a product, not a half-assed product. And so if you have one summer to do something, you can either build something small that's excellent or something that's large, but that's not excellent, and it's half-assed. So how did they do that? In the rest of that chapter, it's a tiny chapter, they describe what they did with Basecamp. So Basecamp is their product. It's like a collaboration software. So with Basecamp, we started with just the messages section. We knew that was the heart of the app, so we ignored milestones, to-do lists, and other items for the time being. That let us base future decisions on real-world usage instead of hunches. So start off lean, smart app, and let it gain traction. Then you can start to add to the solid foundation you've built. Beautiful idea. So now let's talk about cutting scope. And the only way I realized that I could do this is to share some examples from my own career that were extremely successful. So at one of my jobs, I was working on a project where a PM really wanted us to implement a rollback feature. So we were rewriting a system, and it had this rollback feature that was causing all sorts of nightmares, but people are constantly saying they needed it. The PM insisted that we did, but we kept on saying for scope reasons, we're not implementing it, and we can actually have this workaround. So eventually they're like, okay, fine. We can ship it without this, but we want it to become something that we put on our backlog. And then they agreed, but it never became a problem because the workaround was actually like the product solved the need for, the rewrite solved the need for the rollback in the first place. We made it so much faster. And so it didn't even become a problem. And we just, that feature request has been on the backlog and will permanently be on the backlog and will never be picked up. Another thing, this is something that Nick and I were building a while back, was a social calendar app. And we realized that a large amount of the complexity was in two features. One was in attendees and certain aspect about the attendees feature. And the other was recurring events. So we cut them from the scope of what we were doing. The idea never really got validated, never really got traction, or we couldn't get enough people to validate it. So we saved ourselves time. And so this is something that, you know, like when you're trying to validate something, cutting the complex things will save you so much time. There was another time I was working on a big rewrite. Essentially, we had 4 objectives, and it took us like over a year to kind of get to a point where we were trying to get this out, but we couldn't ship that thing at all. Like it had so many bugs, it just couldn't ship. We cut one of the features or one of the requirements, shipped like the other, okay, not quite 3, but 2.5. We shipped 2.5, and that got out the door a lot faster. And had we done that, that's a long story. You can ask me about that later. But had we done that, things would have been in a lot better shape. Another concept that we're going to talk about real quickly is YAGNI, which is just an acronym. It stands for, and I don't know exactly who invented it, probably the extreme programming people, but Martin Fowler, as always, has on it. And what he says is when you build prematurely with something that you're not going to need, you incur expensive costs. One, the cost of building the thing. So it takes time. This summer, if you spend 2 weeks on infrastructure that you don't need, that's 2 weeks lost. Another thing that you incur a cost on is delayed value. So users can't give you feedback. They can't tell you what you've done right. And so it's opportunity cost. Another is the cost of carrying this complexity. Extra stuff is just a mental tax. Every time you think about something in that area of infrastructure where you've built all this extra stuff, you're going to have to take into account that thing. And it's a mental tax on everything that you do. And if there's extra code here and there, it's going to slow you down. And finally, when you build something prematurely, you oftentimes don't build it right. And so there's a cost of repairing that thing to make it right. So YAGNI, it's a very, you're going to hear developers say this all the time. And sometimes they do it like in an aggressive way that kind of is like, you know, just kind of rude, but it comes from a good place. It comes from people who have been burned by it. So be frugal with your scope. Be frugal with your technology choices because learning is expensive. Be frugal with your feature set, critical features only, and generalize your solution with caution. I love modular generalized solutions. That, you know, beautiful APIs and beautiful design is really important to me, but it's not cheap. So again, this comes from a book, The Facts and Fallacies of Software Engineering, but I copied that from Coding Horror's blog. And it says this: reusable components are 3 times as hard to build and should be tried out in 3 different settings before you build them. So don't try to build reusable things from the get-go. Now, I might be getting in some hot water for this because it depends on how you define reusable. You should definitely make your interfaces nice and clean, but you don't want to be building for the most general case. All right, so end of the scope sessions. Keep DJ's words on scope in mind. So that's ship daily. Think about what's required to cut the scope by half. What needs to be done to double the impact? These are words to live by, especially this summer, operating on a relatively tight timeline. And some of you guys have pretty ambitious projects. So we're going to need to be able to manage scope. All right, next part, project management. All right, how are we doing on time? Okay, we're going a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I'll try to go through this with efficiency. So project management, we've got 5 topics that I want to talk about. Just an overview of what sprints look like. So if you've never seen a sprint, this will like take the veil off of it. We're gonna talk about task estimation because this is, a crazy large topic. We'll talk about spikes and what that means. Then a little bit, a lingo of epic stories, tasks, subtasks, and finally some tactical advice, which might be the most important part. And you can reference these slides. Again, I'll always share the slides, and so you can just take a look at them when you're building and how do you split up work. So that part's gonna be really useful. So sprint overview. What are sprints? Sprints usually are time-boxed delivery intervals. So a company oftentimes works in sprints. So usually two-week intervals is what I've seen most people do. Some people do 1-week sprints, especially if you're at a startup. Yeah, you want shorter time intervals so that you can adapt faster. There's a few rituals that we do in sprints. The first, probably the one that people most think about is sprint planning. That's basically figuring out who's going to work on what. Then there's a meeting called backlog grooming. Sometimes teams do planning and grooming together. That's what happened in my first job. And then at my second job, we didn't really do sprints until we did. And then when we did, we split up sprint planning and backlog grooming. So backlog grooming is taking all the tasks on the backlog that you haven't done yet, prioritize them, and then also estimate them. So how big are they? Then you do daily stand-ups to talk about your progress for each day. And it's like, hey, I did this, I'm gonna do this today. And then demos and retrospective. So you share what you did, celebrate, have something that you can share. Again, that's a culture of shipping, right? And retrospectives, what went well, what didn't go well. So I just highlighted some of the key concepts here. So the reason why we do sprints is because one, it forces us to plan, forces us to prioritize, it forces us to estimate. We do demos, so that's a forcing function to have something that actually is visible, and retrospectives such that we can improve our process. I just annotated this with imagining what this would look like in a 14-day sprint. So that's a two-week sprint. Not going to go through that. That's not really all that important. So one thing that I really like though is, so sprints are great when you are working in a large corporation or a corporation that has kind of its stuff together. But at the very beginning, you're constantly in flux. Things are changing. You don't even know what the project is going to look like. And so when you have a rapidly changing environment, a small team, but also a clear objective, I really like running OODA loops. So OODA loops comes from military history or whatever. And essentially the OODA stands for orient yourself, observe, decide, act. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and it seems like common sense, but just thinking to yourself, oh, every single day we're going to have an OODA meeting and we're going to orient ourselves, we're going to observe what's going on, we're going to decide what we're going to do, and then we're going to do it. I think it's extremely, extremely effective and decisive. And so I want to bring that up. So when you're learning a new thing, I think an OODA loop is a pretty good way to think about your time, because the enemy is how fast will you learn the technology, and you just don't know. And so every single day it's going to be a changing thing. And so, am I barking up the wrong tree? Am I wasting my time? So on and so forth. All right, task estimation. So this, again, facts and fallacies of software engineering. One of the two most common cases of runaway projects is poor estimation. A runaway project in summer of shipping will kill your project because you won't ship during summer. And by definition, that's not a success. So estimation is really important. Estimation is also really hard. And estimation is also not fungible. So you can't estimate for me. I can't do the work of estimation for any of you. What takes me 3 days may take you 4 hours, and vice versa. Some tools that people use in the agile world, there's these things called planning poker. I'm not really going to go. Planning poker sounds like way more fun than it actually is. It's basically just people. There's no poker involved. It's simply just like people say like, hey, I think this is this big, and someone else is like, oh, I think it's actually this big, and you just kind of duke it out to make sure that everybody's on the same page. It's just a way to get multiple perspectives on the size of a task instead of letting one person focus on it. So I've got a chat. Can confirm it sounds more fun than it actually is. Yes, not very fun. T-shirt sizing is another thing. That's something, it's a really good practice, I think, to get a sense of, hey, if something's small, is it going to take a day or less? Is it medium, maybe a couple of days or so, or large? And that's going to depend at what stage in the life cycle you startup. A small task might be something that takes an hour, right? And a medium task is something that might take you 4 days. And a large at a large organization, 3 days is still a pretty small task. And so that changes in context, but it's all relative to the project. But it's useful for the project's context. And so when I made this, before I made this presentation, I asked the mentors what they thought about, just scope and project management, and I got some really interesting comments. So one of our mentors, Michael, this is what he personally does for estimation, and I think this is genius. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but essentially it's t-shirt sizing, easy, medium, hard, and depending on he then creates our estimates, and then takes those estimates, and then he multiplies them because all of our estimates are almost inherently wrong, we're always too optimistic, and then he multiplies them again by a buffer to add testing and debugging. So that I love the level of just amount of like padding that he adds, and the way that he does it is really, really smart. Another one of our mentors, Zena, and I have a link to his method. He has an entire document on how he estimates. And this it sounds like, it might look like some complex like calculus or something over here. Yeah, this might be like a Riemann sum, or I don't know what that sum means. But like there's something that's going on that's a lot of like, it's such a hard thing that we create so many tools to help us out. In the end, task estimation is really just like estimating the unknown. And so if you've done the thing a bunch of times, you're going to have a good estimate. If you don't, you're just not going to know. And I'm assuming this is from, what is that, XKCD? And he's basically making fun of how impossible estimation is. So that's what it is. It's a crazy art, but we have to do our best to estimate. So how do you get out of the estimate? Like, how do you work in a world where all your estimates are wrong? There's this concept we use in sprint planning called spikes. And yeah, so Sebastian says, the task estimation is hard and we've been bad at it for 40 years. Absolutely. Yeah, no, like someone has once told me that like a mark of a senior engineer is that like their estimates are correct. But what I've kind of learned is senior engineers pad their estimates by a lot. So I think all it is senior engineers just know that everyone's bad at estimation, and they give themselves more padding than junior engineers. So that might be all it is. But anyways, there's this concept called spikes. And so with spikes, this is one way that we can actually get slightly more accurate estimates. And that's really useful. So a spike is simply a name of a task that we use to estimate the size of another task. And the good thing about spikes is they're time bound. So, hey, Phil, spend the next 2 days figuring out what we're up against, right? Go and help us get oriented with the enemy, which is the unknown task. I found a link, I forget exactly where, but I attributed it. It's somewhere on the internet. But essentially it says, when you do a spike, the tasks include research, design, investigation, exploration, and prototyping. And the purpose is to gain the knowledge necessary to reduce the risk of a technical approach, better understand a requirement, or increase the reliability of a story estimate. In other words, you're trying to reduce risk of a runaway task. So what did happen? Okay, anyways, just my formatting on this side and the last slide got messed up. So when you are new and you are using technologies you're unfamiliar with, APIs you're unfamiliar with, using design patterns, or what are all these kinds of things that you're unfamiliar with, plan a lot of spikes in your process. Just say like, hey, I'm going to run a half-day spike on this, or I'm going to spike this task. And I think it's going to be really useful for the summer to have this in your lingo and just be able to talk to each other. Hey, honestly, I have no idea how to do that. Let me spike it. And I think that's, yeah, just get to know this. And I think it becomes, in industry, we don't use a ton of spikes because I think it's like once you've been working on a code base for a while, you get used to it. And a lot of things you kind of have a sense for how big they are. But when you're working on a new project, basically everything is a spike. So, all right, another thing about lingo, this is just to give you vocabulary, so it's not super exciting. If somebody said, hey, like, let's build the Facebook newsfeed, that's not a task. And so if somebody gave you the task that with it just be like a Jira ticket or a Trello like card that says, hey, build the like Facebook newsfeed, you should tell them, no way, Jose. That's a epic. So that's And that might not just be an epic, that might be like the Iliad or something. That's a monster. And so what we, oh, got a message here. Can't see it right now, but anyways, an epic is a very large general use case. That's a collection of features. So you can think the newsfeed is made up of showing people, videos that auto scroll or autoplay when you scroll, and all sorts of other advertisement, like tactics to monetize whatever cynical things I can say about Facebook. And so we got a comment from one of our mentors. Important, time box your spikes so you don't spend 3 weeks on it. Yes, yes, time box your spikes. I didn't put that in my slide and I forgot, and that's a really bad omission. I will clean up my slide and add a note to time box your spikes. It's extremely important. If you don't time box them, you're kind of defeating the purpose of it. So the epic is a general use case. That's a collection of features. And so there, you can think of, there's tons and tons and tons of features. If you really start taking your magnifying glass and looking at Facebook and ask, how is this implemented? How is this implemented? You realize there's probably a bajillion features in there. So a user story represents a user feature. So that's a little bit more straightforward, liking a comment or liking a post. That's a user feature. Subtask represents development tasks to accomplish the user story. And so those are little things. Time box, Josh, is just a, basically say, I'm willing to spend one day on this task. Not, I'm gonna do this until I get clarity. It's, I'm gonna spend 1 day. If I don't spend, if it goes over, then maybe we're gonna start another spike, or maybe we're just gonna drop it and do something else. And this one, I actually cite the link without hiding it. It comes from Atlassian. And so that is, yeah, that's what the lingo is. And so epics are very large kind of projects. So think of epic as a project, a user story as like a feature, and a subtask as an engineering task. This lingo is all, I think, quite product heavy. And so it doesn't map cleanly all the time to engineering. So if you give somebody a user story, you might actually have to, it might coincide with somebody on your team, and you guys might, trample on each other while you deliver that, just because the product and the engineering don't map cleanly. But it just is what it is. You have to pick one or the other, and it's usually easier for us engineers to adapt to product managers because we can't really see what we see. All right, so we're gonna talk about some tools. These tools are pretty self-evident. I think once you can see them, you really know what this is. This is basically, GitHub's, I forget what they call GitHub boards, or somebody can, but essentially it's just a way to visualize GitHub issues. And like we call these like Kanban boards, and you see everything starts in backlog. When you start working on them, you move them into progress. And then once they're merged back in, they're ready to deploy. So pretty straightforward, right? You can also use Trello. Trello is pretty great. You can still see the idea is pretty similar. There's an in progress section. There is, did someone say the call is cutting out? Okay. If the sound is, okay, it might just be one person's having technical issues, but so long as things are going forward, we'll continue. So again, Trello is great, but you can see the very similar visualization. It's a list of lists organized in a horizontal manner, right? And so these tools really help you visualize these lists: your backlog, which is a list, your to-do list, your doing list, and your done list. So not that complicated, but you do want one. If you don't have one and you have 4 people in a project, you're gonna start feeling pain. Okay, and then the final topic that I want to talk about is splitting up work. So when you have a group of 4 people, the most obvious way to split up work is front end, back end. That's a very natural partition. So you design the API first. That's a really important idea. As soon as you start splitting up, once the API is defined, if you're the back end team, you want to work on mocking out that data. So build up those APIs and return dummy data. And the front end can call you and use your stuff before you've implemented everything else, and they're unblocked because they depend on you. And then after that, you can try partitioning tasks out by flow, but there's more to it. So again, I asked our mentors for some help on ideas for how to split up work, and there was a comment to say, hey, for the very beginning, when you're trying to split up work, you kind of need to modularize your code. And what does that mean? Well, one really great way to modularize your code and parallelize your work is to identify the layers. One of the most obvious layers are going to be your data access layer. So that's, if you have a database, you're going to try to wrap that and be able to access it via some sort of interface in just a clean way. So you don't have to think about how to make connections to MySQL. You just say, hey, get me a user. Then there's also, somebody asked in the mentor chat yesterday, what is like Discord Pi? And Discord Pi basically is an API wrapper of sorts where it wraps the Discord HTTP endpoints, and you can call a Python function. I don't know exactly what it is, but maybe it's like Python, like discord.getMessage. And you don't have to make an HTTP call. You just write regular Python code. And so adding layers is a great way to modularize your work and get each other parallelized. So you can work without being blocked by each other. Again, the principle there is to try to decouple as much as possible. And an example that was given is if you are building a portfolio website, try to decouple your personal data and the website template so that anyone can have one config file and you can reuse the same code, but with different data, right? And so that's one way to decouple. And so having this mindset of decoupling is going to be useful. And then lastly, it's this concept of design by contract. Really what we were doing with the front and back end split is we were defining an interface, an API, a contract, where these two like groups of people are going to, like, that's where, like, you know, where ET like phones home, or, you know, what's that Sistine Chapel thing, you know, that point of contact. And you define what that contact is, how that's going to happen. And that doesn't happen just at your API layer. That can happen on the front end, that can happen between layers, and that can happen on the back end between layers or between modules. So extremely useful concept to think about is design by contract. Even if you don't even know what it means, if you just like brush your teeth and say design by contract, you're gonna start wondering exactly what it means when you bring it up in conversation. It's gonna help your project, and it's gonna help you guys parallelize work. So that's gonna be really, really helpful. That's really all I have for you guys this week in terms of presentations. It took a long time. I should have ran through this a little bit, but yeah, 40 minutes to go through announcements and this, a little bit longer than usual. The action items for this week are pretty straightforward. So a lot of you guys have sent me ideas and things that you want to work on, things you want to learn. And now it's time to go form groups or execute on that. So if you are looking to partner up and you have an idea, go to Idea Pitch and make that happen. If you don't have an idea and you want to see what other people are working on and you kind of want to be in a group, you don't want to work alone, go and you've gone through the beginner track, then go to find a group and Martini will get you situated. Also, I forgot to mention, if you're a beginner, go to beginner track, but that is, I hope you got that message. If you're working solo or you already have a team, now it's time to start defining the project. So it should say define your problem, and next line, cut scope. But whoops. And then start using your project management tools to get visual clarity on what you're doing, and start delivery cadence for demos. So get into a process that's going to carry you for momentum. And then everybody, if you're not on Discord, get on Discord. Discord, when we had our first presentation, I didn't understand how important Discord was going to be for us, but it's where a lot of information gets shared and conversations happen. So get on Discord. Also get on Twitter and send me your handle. That way, or actually you don't need to send me your handle, but get on Twitter and post it in the Discord. That way we can all connect on another forum that is in public and try to, you know, get more attention, eyeballs on the products that we build. And then come on, if you are a student, say hi to at least one mentor. They're going to just be so happy to hear like, hey, like this is me and I just want to say hi. Do that, and again, like we will all be very appreciative. So those are the action items for next week. Get a little, yep, less than 3 as well. All right, those are the items for this week, and that concludes the prepared remarks. And now it's time for demos. So we're going to give a couple minutes for people to kind of get ready. I forgot to get you mentally prepared for demos, but if anybody has a demo, then now is the time to do it. So if anybody wants to demo, ping the chat, and I'm not sure if Nick has to give you permission to do it, but we'll figure something out. All right. Any demos? All right. So we got one demo from Ashim.
Yeah. Hello.
All
Can you hear me?
right. Yes. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And if anybody else has a demo, just ping the chat so that we can. Yeah. If it's late for anybody, then yeah, and you have to drop off now. No worries. The demos will be on YouTube as well. So I'm going to stop sharing. And I think you can. I think Nick might have to give you some control over that. But if anybody else wants a demo, just ping the chat.
Yeah. If you can see my screen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So this is a project I've been working on like for a month, and it's basically using GANs to colorize black and white pictures. And so yeah, over the month I have been like creating the front end and the back end, connecting it with a queue so that it can potentially scale. So this is like the system architecture for this that I came up with. The front end, there's a node server that submits all the jobs to the queue, and that goes to the Python worker, and the Python worker processes the queue and goes to the MongoDB, and with the front end again sends to the client. And actual, okay, sorry about that. And actually for the demo, here's the website. It's running on this URL, and I just have a basic site that colorizes this is out of the sample images, and
Oh, no way.
yeah. And if I have some like other sample.
Baby
okay,
Yoda, Baby Yoda, Baby Yoda.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it kind of, okay, it's running on like cheap hardware, so it might take a while.
No, that's wow, this is crazy.
Yeah.
This is
And
crazy. Dude, this is insane. And I love the little architecture diagram that you drew as well.
yeah, I just want people to see like how it actually works and how it's all done.
Perfect. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's so cool.
If anyone wants to use the API as well, I just like have a simple example. Like I don't know it works or not because I haven't tried it. I just modified something, like it might have some error. So yeah, do go on. And here's another example of some building. So yeah.
Dude, wow, that's insane. That's insane. Very, very, very cool, man.
Yeah, just a warning, it doesn't work entirely well for like human pictures because as you will see, yeah, there are some patches that, so I'm trying to fix that. So yeah, that's my demo. All right.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. That's really rad. I'm all about the Baby Yoda and your project as well.
The Baby Yoda, yeah.
yeah. No, but that was awesome.
Thank you.
All right, whoops, I sent a message to one person, but I meant to send it to everybody. So I think a round of applause for Ashim, just kind of private, like quietly. We'll just do it via the Zoom chat, and on the recording, it'll just be my one hand clapping or my two hands clapping. But next up, I think we've got, was it Blake? Is that who I promised? Yeah, Blake, if you want to unmute yourself and start going, I think, I don't know, Nick, if you've been kind of masterminding the behind the scenes, if they can just do it themselves.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'll share my screen 1 second.
Perfect.
Just thinking of, can you share your whole desktop, or is it only certain windows you can share?
You should be, the first top left option should be the entire
Just
desktop.
screen? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I was working on like a Sudoku solver web app.
Sweet.
So this uses like a backtracking algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of just wanted to test like my algorithm skills and then also kind of like integrate it into a web app. I thought it would be a cool, fun like resume project.
Yeah.
So this is all the code. I don't know if I should actually explain this or if I should just run it, but
Yeah, just give it a run. Yeah.
so gives you the start and then you run it, and zeros are the spaces that have to be filled, and then it'll give you all the solutions and just tells you how long it took.
Dang. Wow, that's That's like, half a millisecond faster than I did it.
Yeah.
Just joking, but
I think it's more fun than actually doing it yourself, is making a program to do it.
that's amazing. Yeah,
Um,
that's super cool.
but yeah, if I open my code on live server, actually I already had one open. So basically I was using Bootstrap's really simple template so far, but I just have the title here, and I was gonna put the board here, and then like buttons and stuff here. So you click like solve or something. And then on the
Awesome.
board, I kind of wanted to add like animations and stuff. And then I also
Awesome.
wanted it responsive for mobile. So if I shrink it, you can see that the columns collapse. So you can also use it on mobile. So yeah, that's just about it.
Awesome. Love it. And I love how you, I'm not entirely sure how you are rendering the thing in the command line, but basically, like, I think we talked about modularization and decoupling the view from the actual data. And so if you can have the same data support both the command line visualization and the, like browser visualization.
Oh yeah. I'm thinking of figuring out some way to deploy it soon. So
Yeah, that'll be really, and that's going to be a really, that could be something that you talk about in an interview and stuff. And so,
yeah, for sure.
awesome.
All right,
Dude,
thanks for listening, guys.
awesome. Hey, there's a round of applause for Blake. It's mostly just me clapping on the audio, but everybody is commenting in the chat. So sweet. I think there's Sebastian. I think one of our mentors wanted to describe a project. I don't know if he's able to actually share or do a demo. So we're gonna have to rely on his storytelling abilities, maybe, or if he is able to set it up. We'll see. Alrighty, so Sebastian, if you want to unmute yourself and just kind of describe what you are working on, or if you're able to set up the screen share, that would be really cool too. But
yeah, no problem. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, cool. Yeah, I can't share with you right now because my ISP just dropped my internet, so I'm on my 4G. I'll try to share the project on the Discord later. But
Okay.
basically, what I'm gonna share the output because that I can do. What I made is basically a little system which allows me to scrape YouTube channels for new uploads every morning, and take those video titles, send them to a queue, and I have a little system that takes all of those new uploads and search on Spotify for new tracks and adds those tracks to a Spotify playlist. So basically, it's an auto updating playlist for a Spotify playlist. So every morning I have around 20 new tracks that I can listen to because I DJ part-time, and the most time-consuming part of being a DJ is finding new music to play. I thought it was going to be a pretty straightforward project. Actually involves multiple lambdas on AWS, like one queue, multiple caching systems to keep my Spotify token alive. And it got pretty complex, but it's really cool. And I linked the playlist for anybody who wants to go check out the playlist. It's been running since November. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. And it would actually, if we could, where am I? I've suddenly lost track of where I am. But if we could, it would be actually really cool to maybe see an architecture diagram as well. I think that would be
Yeah.
like worth a demo in of itself. Just to,
Yeah, I have one on my GitHub, but I'll share that in the Discord.
Awesome. Super exciting. Awesome. And everyone, again, reminder that Sebastian is one of our mentors, and I think I looked on the mentor list, and Sebastian actually has a Calendly. Is that right? So if you want to, you can book a slot with him to just have a conversation.
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. Does anybody else want to do a demo today? I might have missed some people. I wasn't after a little bit. I kind of just wasn't looking on the chat, so. I think, oh yeah, and one thing that I forgot to mention, and what we'll do, I'm making this up on the spot right now, Jacob, but we have a few like 30-day like licenses for Pluralsight, and we're going to just give those away to the next people who demo. And so the first, I think we've had a couple students demo. Sorry, Sebastian, we're only offering that to students right now, but there's like, we have a few small Pluralsight, like, what is it called? Codes that last for, I think, a month. And we'll give those out to everyone who demos. So the next person who demos will get one of those. So, alrighty, I think that's everybody. So that wraps up our presentations and our demos. And again, round of applause for everybody who demoed today. Those are all really super cool. Thank you for sharing that. And with that, we're going to move into the next section, which is the breakout rooms. And with that, before we do that, if you want to drop off and don't want to be a part of the breakout sessions, I know not everybody likes to doing that. That would be time to do that. And we'll also stop the recording. So Nick, if you can stop the recording.
Yep, stopping now.